The men around you have been at sea for months, their faces weathered and drawn, their bodies smelling faintly of stale sweat and whale oil. You watch as they heave the heavy anchor into the water, its splash echoing the loneliness that seems to cling to this vast, empty sea. The routine of life aboard a whaling ship was as repetitive as the rhythm of the waves. As a deckhand, your days were filled with the same tasks, hauling in lines, cleaning the decks, tending to the sails, always with the smell of salt and the cry of seagulls overhead. Just the endless horizon broken only by the occasional flash of a dolphin-esque fin or the dark shape of a whale. The sun beat down, turning the deck into a furnace, or the wind howled, threatening to tear the sails. But through it all, there was a strange beauty in the solitude, a humbling realization of how small you are in the face of the endless sea. Evenings brought little change. After a meager supper of salt meat and hard bread, the men would gather on deck, their voices low, telling stories of home or the monstrous whales they had faced. They spoke of Moby Dick, a white whale that had become a legend, a symbol of the untamable wilderness of the sea. And as you listen, you feel the awe and terror that these men must have felt when they encountered the largest creature that has ever lived. At night, the darkness was absolute, broken only by the faint glow of the lanterns and the stars above. The rocking of the ship became a lullaby, and the sound of the waves crashing against the hull a constant reminder that you were at the mercy of the ocean. Sleep was fitful, full of strange dreams that mirrored the loneliness of the sea. When you awoke, it was to the cry of the lookout whale, a whale. Your heart raced as you scrambled to your feet and ran to the rail. In the distance, a spout of water arched into the air, a sure sign of a whale's presence. The men fell into action, their movements practiced and efficient. Harpoons were loaded, boats were lowered, and soon you were in the water, rowing towards the churning water. You watched, mesmerized, as the whale breached the surface, its immense bulk a testament to the raw power of nature. The chase went on for hours, a test of endurance and skill. And when they finally harpooned the whale, there was a mixture of triumph and exhaustion. You helped haul the massive carcass aboard, its size almost unbelievable. The work was hard, the stench of blood and blubber thick, but there was a grim satisfaction in the knowledge that their survival depended on this. The meat would provide food, the oil fuel their lamps, and the bones and blubber rendered down into oil to lubricate their machinery. In the evenings, you sat with the others eating boiled whale meat, its taste strong and gamey. The men talked, their voices hoarse from shouting over the wind, but their laughter echoed with the joy of men who had faced death and lived to tell the tale. You thought of your life back home, of loved ones and familiar streets, and a deep longing filled your chest. Would you ever see them again, or was this endless sea becoming your new home? One evening, as the sky blazed with the colors of sunset, a shout went up from the crow's nest. Land ho! Dot! A cheer erupted, and the men surged toward the rail, their faces filled with the light of hope. After weeks at sea, land was a promise of rest, resupply, and maybe, just maybe, a way home. As the ship sailed into the harbor, you felt a surge of emotion, the thrill of survival, the joy of community, and the haunting realization that this moment of reprieve would end, and you would be back out in the vast emptiness of the ocean. Life on a whaling ship was more than just a job. It was a way of life, a brotherhood forged in the fires of hardship and tempered by the loneliness of the sea. For these men, the ocean was their world, and they were forever bound to its rhythms and mysteries. But our journey tonight is not just about the harsh realities of life at sea. It's also about the stories that unfolded on these same waters. Stories of love, loss, and the enduring power of the human spirit. We now shift our gaze to another world, another time, where the vast expanse of the sea becomes the backdrop for a tale of tragedy and mystery that will echo through the ages. Imagine the year is 1820 and you find yourself in the bustling port of Nantucket, a town that throbs with the energy of sailors coming and going, of merchants eager for trade, and of course, the haunting calls of lonely whalers returning from months at sea. Among them is a man named Ishmael, a young sailor with eyes that hold the restlessness of the ocean and a heart that beats to the rhythm of the waves. He has heard the tales of the great whales, the white whale, Moby Dick, and feels the pull of the sea like a siren's call. And so he signs on to the Pequod, a whaling ship captained by the enigmatic and driven Captain Ahab. On board, finds a diverse crew. Queequeg, a tattooed Polynesian harpooner with a gentle heart and stoic strength. Starbuck, the ship's first mate, a voice of reason and calm amidst the brewing storm. And Fadala, a mysterious and ominous figure who seems to share an unsettling connection with the captain. Together, they set sail into the vast unknown, chasing the whispers of the wind and the elusive call of the whale. Their journey takes them across uncharted waters, battling storms that test their courage and facing encounters that push them to the brink. As the story unfolds, we witness the obsessive determination of Captain Ahab, his single-minded pursuit of revenge against the white whale that took his leg years ago. We see the quiet strength of Starbuck, torn between his loyalty to his captain and his own sense of right and wrong. And we marvel at the resilience of Queequeg, whose wisdom and bravery shine through in the darkest of moments. But looming over it all is the shadow of Moby Dick. It's a creature that becomes a symbol of the untamed forces of nature and the limits of human ambition. The climax comes in a confrontation so epic, so terrifying, and so tragic that it leaves us questioning the nature of obsession, the boundaries of revenge, and the cost of confronting the unknown. As the story reaches its conclusion, we are left to ponder the fate of humanity and the enduring power of the natural world. And though the tale is fictional, the emotions it evokes are as real as the sea itself. In the depths of despair and the heights of triumph, in the face of death and the search for redemption, we see ourselves reflected and are reminded of the complexities that define our shared human experience. In the midst of this drama, there is another tale waiting to be told. This time, it is the story of the Mary Celeste, a brigantine that set sail from New York on November 7th, 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy, laden with a cargo of wine and figs. On board were 7 crew members and their families, a total of 9 souls seeking new beginnings across the sea. Days turned into weeks, and by December, the seas had grown rough, testing the ship's strength and the crew's resolve. Then, as if by magic, the storm suddenly ceased, leaving behind an eerie calm that was almost unsettling. As the family of Captain Benjamin Briggs stood on the deck of the Mary Celeste, gazing at the seemingly endless expanse of ocean, they must have felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The prospect of a new life in Italy beckoned, promising adventure and opportunity. Yet the unforgiving nature of the sea was a constant reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. Suddenly a lookout cried out, "Land ho!" shattering the silence and sending a wave of relief washing over the crew. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. As the Mary Celeste approached the Italian coast, anticipation filled the air. The crew prepared to unload their cargo and start their new lives. But as they pulled into port, they noticed something disturbing. There were no other ships in sight. Had they encountered a pirate attack, or perhaps a sudden storm had scattered the fleet? Curiosity piqued. The captain decided to investigate. To his astonishment, he found the ship deserted, the cargo untouched, the provisions still on board, and the sails in perfect condition. The logbook revealed that the last entry had been made on December, a full 7 days before they arrived. Where were the crew? What could have caused them to abandon ship without a trace? Theories abounded. Some whispered of mutiny, others of a sudden illness that struck down the entire crew. Still others spoke of mythical creatures from the deep that lured sailors away from their vessels. Over the years, many theories have been proposed, each trying to unravel the enigma of the Mary Celeste. Some believe the crew abandoned ship due to a mysterious illness. Others point to supernatural occurrences, or even pirates as possible culprits. But the truth remains elusive, lost to the depths of the sea, along with the crew of the Mary Celeste. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the captain found himself struck by a profound sense of unease. He couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched, that some unseen force was lurking just beyond their sight. Despite the fear that gnawed at him, he couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder as he gazed up at the star-studded sky. For in that vast expanse, he saw not just celestial bodies, but a reflection of the boundless mysteries that the sea held. With a heavy heart and a troubled mind, the captain steered the ship forward into the darkness. Determined to uncover the secrets of the Mary Celeste and hoping against hope that he would find answers amidst the eternal silence of the sea. Now we move from the chilling mystery of the Mary Celeste to a world of affluence and leisure, where the ocean was a playground for the rich and powerful. Imagine yourself aboard a luxurious steamer gliding through the same waters, but in a world of opulence and comfort. The year is 1911, and the mighty Titanic, hailed as the epitome of luxury and innovation, is on its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York. Among the nearly 3,000 passengers and crew are titans of industry, renowned artists and socialites seeking new experiences. As you step onto the Titanic, you are greeted by a world of unparalleled elegance. The grand staircase sweeps majestically upward, adorned with fresh flowers and polished to a gleam. Waiters circulate, offering champagne, and live musicians fill the air with lively tunes. In the dining room, the menu boasts an array of delicacies, from caviar and foie gras to lobster and vintage wines. The cabins are spacious and sumptuously furnished, complete with private bathrooms and electric lights. Life on board is a symphony of indulgence. By day, passengers promenade on the sun deck, enjoying the warm ocean breeze and taking in the panoramic views. Children play in the nursery while mothers relax in the Turkish baths. For the more adventurous, there is a gymnasium, a swimming pool, and even a squash court. In the evenings, the atmosphere transforms into one of refined elegance. Couples waltz in the ballroom as soloists perform in the nearby lounge. Laughter echoes from the smoking room, where cigars are puffed and deals are made. As the days pass, the Titanic becomes a floating metropolis, a microcosm of society where class divisions are blurred and everyone is united by the pursuit of pleasure and the thrill of adventure. But beneath the veneer of luxury, there are undercurrents of unease. The crew, mostly immigrants themselves, work tirelessly to maintain the illusion of perfection, often at great personal cost. And in the vast expanse of the ocean, there are hints of danger lurking just beyond the ship's gilded cage. The Titanic, with its seemingly invincible reputation, becomes a symbol of humanity's hubris in the face of nature's raw power. And then it happens. The unsinkable ship strikes an iceberg and begins its slow descent into the icy depths. Panic ensues, shattering the illusion of safety and exposing the fragility of life. As the Titanic slips beneath the waves, it takes with it the dreams, aspirations, and lives of those on board, leaving nothing but questions and a legacy of tragedy. Today, as you drift back to the present, you might find yourself pondering the stark contrasts and haunting mysteries that lie beneath the ocean's surface. The harsh realities of whaling, the gripping tale of obsession and loss in Moby Dick, the enduring allure of the open sea, and the sudden disappearance of the crew on the Mary Celeste. These stories interweave to create a tapestry of human experience. And as for the Titanic, may its tale serve as a reminder of both the heights of human achievement and the humbling power of nature. If you found yourself lost in these tales and found solace in the rhythm of the sea, we invite you to join us again soon for another sonic journey. Until then, may the gentle lull of the waves carry you to peaceful dreams. There's nothing romantic about being at sea for weeks, months even, with little food and less sleep, fighting off scurvy and storms, all for a dubious profit. The life of a whaler was not easy, and the reality of whaling was a far cry from the romanticized version popular in the late 19th century. It wasn't just the danger or the long months spent at sea. It was the sheer drudgery of the work, the monotony broken only by the occasional storm or sighting of a whale. Picture the deck beneath your feet, slick with seawater, rough with sand that had been scattered to prevent slipping. Around you, the ship feels alive. The timbers expand and contract with the weather, groaning in the cold nights, sighing under the pressure of the waves. The air is sharp, tinged with salt, and often heavy with the faint odor of oil. Whale oil, that is, rancid food, sweat, and damp wood mingling into a single, unforgettable scent. You tighten your grip on the rope, hauling in a net laden with fish, your breakfast, if it can be called that, because imagine eating fish day after day, salted and dried until it's tough enough to make a grown man's mouth water. Variety was a luxury the whalers did not enjoy. Life on board a whaling ship in the 1800s was characterized by routine, hardship, and the constant smell of oil. The sailors' days are long, hot, and uncomfortable, made bearable only by the steady rhythm of work and rest. Their meals consisted of fish, salt, pork, bread, and biscuits, which they ate with their hands while standing up. The food was often monotonous and not always fresh, leading to feelings of isolation and despair. But it's not just the food that makes life on board a whaling ship in the 1800s difficult. The sailors have to deal with the harsh elements and the dangerous whales they hunt. Imagine yourself on a whaling ship in the 1800s. The wind whips around you, salty and cold, and you pull on your thick coat to stay warm. You shiver despite the effort and think of the warm hearth you left behind when you signed on to this voyage. You had dreams of adventure, of seeing the world, maybe even of striking it rich. But now you're just cold, wet, and hungry. This is the reality of whaling in the 1800s. You are a sailor on a whaling ship, and your days are long and hard. You work tirelessly to hunt whales, and when you return to the ship, you have to clean the blubber off the deck. The stench is awful, and the work is never-ending. You eat a simple meal of salt pork and hard biscuits, and you wonder if you'll ever see land again. You miss your family and friends, and you start to feel the effects of isolation and loneliness. Your skin becomes dry and cracked from the salt water and the wind. Your hair becomes tangled and greasy. Your beard grows long and unkempt. You haven't seen a barber in months, and you feel like a wild man. Your hands are calloused and scarred from hauling in nets and harpoons. Your muscles are sore and aching from the constant labor. You feel tired and exhausted all the time. The work is never ending, and you never get a break. You yearn for rest, but there is no time for that. The ship creaks and groans as it sails through the rough seas. The waves crash against the hull, and the wind screams through the rigging. You feel the rocking and pitching of the ship beneath you, and you wonder if it will capsize. You grip the ropes and braces tightly and brace yourself for the next wave. You strain to keep your balance as the ship rolls and pitches. The storm rages on for days, and you are exhausted. You have been up for days without sleep, and you feel like you are losing your mind. The cold seeps into your bones, and you shake uncontrollably. You huddle in the corner of the deck with the other sailors, trying to keep warm. You feel helpless against the fury of the sea. The wind howls like a banshee, and the rain pours down in torrents. You are soaked to the bone, and you feel like you are going to die. And just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. The ship takes on water, and you have to bail out the hold. You work frantically to keep the ship from sinking, but it seems like a losing battle. The water keeps pouring in, and you are exhausted. Just when you think you can't take it anymore, the storm passes, and the sun comes out. You look around you and see the damage that has been done. The ship is battered and bruised, but it's still afloat. You feel like you have survived a shipwreck, and you are exhausted. You finally get some rest, but it's short-lived. You have to get back to work. And that is just one day in the life of a sailor on a whaling ship in the 1800s. Imagine that every day for months on end. And that's what it was like to be a sailor on a whaling ship in the 1800s. Between hunting whales, cleaning the deck, and battling the elements, these sailors had to endure harsh conditions and a monotonous diet. And to top it all off, they had to deal with the constant threat of death. But despite all this, they kept going. They were driven by the promise of adventure, the lure of the unknown, and the hope of a better life. In the early 1800s, whaling was a highly sought-after profession. Sailors were drawn to the industry by the promise of high wages and the chance to explore the world. However, the reality of whaling was far different from the dream that many sailors had. When they signed on to a whaling ship, they were in for a long and arduous journey that would test their physical and mental endurance. Many sailors who went whaling were young men who had little experience at sea. They were eager to prove themselves and earn money to support themselves or their families back home. Others were seasoned sailors who had heard tales of the dangers and hardships of whaling, but were still willing to give it a try for the potential reward. Regardless of their experience, all of them were about to embark on a journey that would change their lives forever. As the ship set sail, the crew had high hopes for the voyage. They were excited to hunt whales and bring home the oil that was so valuable in the early 1800s. However, they soon realized that the reality of whaling was far from what they had imagined. The first few weeks at sea were the worst. The sailors had to endure rough waves and stormy weather, and they were confined to the ship with little room to move around. The conditions were cramped and unsanitary, and the crew was constantly battling the elements. Despite the challenges, the crew pressed on, driven by the promise of success. They knew that the dangers of the sea were just the beginning of what they would face in the world of whaling. As the ship approached whaling grounds, the crew began to prepare for the hunt. They checked their equipment, sharpened their harpoons, and made sure they had everything they needed to capture a whale. The sailors were excited to put their skills to the test and see they could succeed in bringing down one of these massive creatures. When the first whale was finally spotted, the crew erupted in cheers. After weeks at sea, the sight of a whale was a welcome change of pace. However, the excitement was short-lived as the crew quickly got to work on preparing for the hunt. They raced to lower the boats into the water and get themselves ready to chase the whale. The sailors knew that the hunt would be long and arduous, and they had to be prepared for anything. Once the boats were in the water, the sailors rowed furiously after the whale. The chase could last for hours, and the crew had to maintain their stamina and focus. As the whale finally began to tire, the sailors knew that the most dangerous part of the hunt was about to begin. They had to bring the massive creature back to the ship, and that meant hauling it in using only brute strength and determination. As the sailors pulled the whale towards the ship, they strained every muscle in their bodies. The weight of the creature was immense, and the crew had to work together to make sure it didn't slip away. But as the whale neared the ship, a sudden surge of strength propelled it forward, and the crew found themselves being dragged along with it. The sailors held on for dear life, bracing themselves against the rolling waves. They knew that if they lost their grip, they could easily be pulled into the water and lost to the sea. As the whale was finally hauled onto the ship, the crew collapsed in exhaustion. They had worked themselves to the bone, and now they had to do it all over again. The process of removing the blubber and rendering the oil was long and smelly, but the crew knew that it was essential to their survival. Without the oil, they would have nothing to trade for food and supplies, and they would eventually starve to death. So they got to work stripping away the blubber and boiling it down to render the oil. The sailors worked tirelessly to strip the blubber from the whale's body. They cut and hacked away at the thick layer of fat, and the stench of rotting flesh filled the air. The blubber was then boiled in huge cauldrons until it turned into oil.
Wow.
The process was long and tedious, and the crew had to work in shifts to make sure it never stopped. But as the days turned into weeks and the oil started to accumulate, the crew began to lose hope. They realized that the amount of oil they were producing was not nearly enough to sustain them for the entire journey. They had underestimated the amount of oil needed to keep their bodies fueled and their ship running, and they were now in a desperate situation. With dwindling supplies and a long journey ahead of them, the crew had to find a way to ration their oil more carefully. They knew that every drop was precious, and they had to make sure it lasted as long as possible. They cut back on the amount of oil they used for cooking, lighting, and heating, and they tried to find alternative sources of fuel. They gathered driftwood and other debris from the ocean to use as fuel, but it was not nearly enough. As the days passed, the crew's bodies started to show the effects of the oil shortage. They felt weak and fatigued, and their skin became dry and cracked from lack of oil used for lubrication. They struggled to keep up their spirits, but the constant reminder of their dwindling supplies weighed heavily on their minds. But then something unexpected happened. A storm struck the ship, causing widespread damage. The crew scrambled to repair the damage and salvage what they could, but the storm had taken its toll. The ship was leaking, the supplies were ruined, and the crew was demoralized. In the midst of the chaos, the crew discovered an old stash of oil that had been hidden on board the ship. It was not much, but it was enough to give them a much-needed boost. They rationed the oil carefully, making sure it lasted as long as possible. They used it to repair the ship, cook meals, and keep their bodies lubricated. As the crew sailed on, they were grateful for the unexpected windfall. It had given them hope when all seemed lost. The discovery of the hidden oil reminded the crew that even in the darkest of times, there was always a glimmer of hope. The sailors continued their journey, but the shadow of the oil shortage loomed over them. They knew that they couldn't rely on luck to save them, and they had to find a solution to their problem. They brainstormed ways to conserve oil and came up with a plan to ration the remaining oil more carefully. They also explored alternative sources of fuel, such as salvaged wood from shipwrecks and other debris they found floating in the sea. But despite their efforts, the crew knew that they were in a race against time. The amount of oil they had on board was slowly dwindling, and they needed to find a solution to their problem before it was too late. As the days turned into weeks, the crew's desperation grew. They started to panic at the thought of running out of oil and being stranded at sea with no way to survive. The tension on board the ship was palpable as the crew struggled to find a solution to their problem. But then something happened that nobody expected. A passing ship offered them some oil in exchange for some of their whale oil. It was a risky move, but it was their only hope. The sailors eagerly accepted the offer and traded some of their oil for more fuel. As the ship sailed on, the crew was filled with gratitude for the passing ship. It saved them from a disastrous fate. The sailors were overjoyed to have secured more oil. They celebrated with a feast of salted pork and biscuits, and they shared stories of their adventures. The mood on board the ship was lighter now, and the crew was able to relax a bit. They were grateful for the second chance they had been given, but the sailors knew that they could not become complacent. They still had a long journey ahead of them, and they needed to conserve their oil carefully. They continued to ration the oil, but now they had a bit more leeway. They were able to cook more hearty meals and keep their bodies lubricated. Despite the challenges, the crew of the whaling ship pressed on. They continued to hunt whales and gather debris from the ocean for fuel. They faced storms, injuries, and the constant threat of starvation, but they never gave up hope. And when they finally returned to port, they were greeted as heroes. The townspeople cheered and celebrated their return, and the crew was given a hero's welcome. The sailors had endured months at sea, battling the elements and the uncertainty of their fate. They had proven their courage, their resilience, and their determination, and they had emerged victorious. The crew of the whaling ship had endured a harrowing journey, but they had survived. They had learned the importance of perseverance, the value of teamwork, and the power of the human spirit. And as they looked back on their journey, they knew that they had experienced something truly extraordinary. All right, guys, let's head on back to the boat. We've been talking about the harsh realities of life at sea for the common sailor. Now, from the daily grind of scrubbing the decks to dealing with storms and balancing the ship, you've heard me talk about these things, and you know there is a lot that goes into being a sailor. But today, I want to pull back the curtain a bit and reveal one of the most infamous chapters in maritime history. This story has everything: drama, betrayal, despair, and even cannibalism. Yes, I said cannibalism. So grab your grog mugs, batten down the hatches, and prepare to be transported back in time, because this is the story of the Essex, a tale that will make you question the limits of human endurance. The year is 1819. Our story begins in the bustling port of Nantucket, Massachusetts. In those days, Nantucket was like the Hollywood of whaling ships. Back then, whaling was not only a way to harvest oil and render fat, but it was also a profitable business. In fact, Nantucket was to whaling what LA is to movies. Anyway, our story centers around a modest whaling vessel named the Essex. The Essex was neither the biggest nor the fastest ship in the fleet, but it had a solid reputation for bringing in good catches. Oh, and by the way, did I mention that the crew of the Essex were not just sailors, but an elite squad of whalers? They were the best of the best. These guys knew the seas like the back of their calloused hands. So one day the captain, George Pollard Jr., and his crew set sail on what would be a journey to remember. However, not in the way they expected. As the ship cut through the waves, there was a sense of anticipation in the air. Everyone was ready to put their skills to the test and bring back the bounty of the deep. I can only imagine the salty spray of the ocean on their faces as they strained to catch the first glimpse of a whale. But as the sun climbed higher in the sky, it became clear that this voyage would be different from the rest. The crew spotted a group of whales swimming in the distance. The men sprang into action. They grabbed their tools and prepared to hunt. But as they got closer to the whales, a change came over the captain. Something didn't feel right. He tried to explain it, but there are no words for that feeling. Nevertheless, he decided to trust his instincts. And instead of diving right in, he instructed the crew to stand down. Little did they know that this decision would change their lives forever. As they continued their journey, the Essex encountered pod after pod of whales. But each time, the captain felt compelled to call off the hunt. Was it intuition? Or was there something lurking beneath the waves that he couldn't quite see? Meanwhile, tensions began to rise among the crew. Some thought the captain had lost his mind. Without the promised profits from the whales, they might not earn enough money to make the voyage worthwhile. The whispers started spreading through the ship like wildfire, casting doubts on the captain's every move. Now, the crew wasn't just made up of tough, seasoned sailors. There were young lads on board too, and they were starting to get scared. For them, this was their first voyage, and they were relying on the captain to keep them safe. As days turned into weeks, the crew grew restless. They pressured the captain to resume the hunt. Finally, relenting to their demands, Pollard allowed them to pursue the whales. The men cheered and rushed to their tasks, eager to finally dive into the hunt. Then, as if summoned by their eagerness, a massive sperm whale suddenly surfaced near the ship. Its size was almost unbelievable, estimated to be around 85 feet long. But that's not even the half of it. Odd seeing a giant, like really big, bigger than the ship. Humpback whales are huge, right? Well, multiply that size by 2, and you're getting close to the sheer scale of this beast. The sailors must have felt like ants facing a giant. However, the whale wasn't done with the Essex. It lunged again, this time striking the ship with such force that the wood split and the water started pouring in. Within seconds, the ship began to sink. The men scrambled for the lifeboats, but they knew they had only seconds to escape. With the Essex rapidly going down, they jumped into the small open boats and rowed away from the sinking ship as fast as they could. Picture the scene. It's the once proud whaling ship disappearing beneath the waves, leaving behind only a trail of splintered wood and shattered dreams. As the men watched the Essex vanish, they knew they were on their own. The open sea stretched out before them, vast and unforgiving. The men were adrift, and their fate hung in the balance. The fight for survival had just begun. Stranded in tiny boats, the men found themselves at the mercy of the elements. The scorching sun beat down on them, turning their skin to leather and making every drop of water they didn't ration precious. To make things worse, their provisions ran out quickly, leaving them with nothing to stave off the gnawing hunger that tormented them day and night. Just imagine being out there with nothing but the clothes on your back. No food, no water, and the endless ocean all around you. That's the kind of desperation that can drive a person to do things they never thought possible. After 3 months of enduring thirst and hunger, the men had become shadows of their former selves. Picture their bodies emaciated, their eyes hollow, haunted by the specter of starvation. The relentless sun had turned their skin to wrinkled leather, making them look like ancient sailors who had seen too many seasons at sea. To survive, they had to take extreme measures. Drinking salty ocean water to quench their thirst and catching rainwater to replenish their supplies. But the unimaginable happened when the men resorted to the most desperate measure of all, cannibalism. In their moments of desperation, they drew lots, and the losers were sacrificed. Cannibalism was not new in seafaring tales. There were plenty of famous accounts of people doing it, like the Donner Party, a group of pioneers who resorted to eating one another during a snowbound winter in the Sierra Nevada mountains, or the HMS Bounty, where the crew survived by doing the same thing after their ship wrecked on Pitcairn Island in 1789. As the days dragged on, the men began to die, one by one, succumbing to the relentless grip of starvation. Those left alive were confronted with a heart-wrenching choice. As they struggled to comprehend the magnitude of their dire straits, they devised a grim strategy. They would draw lots, casting their fates to the whims of chance. The unlucky few selected would meet a grim end, becoming sustenance for the rest. No sailor wants to find themselves in a situation like this, caught between the horrors of starvation and the gruesome necessity of cannibalism. And this was the reality for the men on the Essex. It was a heavy price to pay for survival. After a harrowing journey of nearly 3 months, only 8 men were eventually found, rescued by a British ship called the Indian. Upon their rescue, they shared their grim tale, a story that would send shockwaves through the maritime community. The survival of the fittest, eh? If you think that's crazy, check out this video where a lifeboat captain talks about having to leave sailors behind on a sinking ship. Talk about hard choices. Click here to watch. From the tragedy of the Essex, let us now drift into another tale of the sea one wrapped, not in disaster witnessed, but in silence and absence. This is the mystery of the Mary Celeste, a ship whose story has puzzled sailors and historians for generations. The Mary Celeste was an American brigantine, sturdy and modest, built for trade. In late 1872, she set sail from New York, bound for Genoa in Italy, carrying a cargo of industrial alcohol. On board were the captain, Benjamin Briggs, his wife, their young daughter, and a crew of 7. By all accounts, Briggs was an experienced and respectable seaman, not prone to risk or recklessness. His voyage began without trouble, the ship strong, the crew capable, the weather ordinary. But weeks later, another vessel, the Dei Gratias, potted the Mary Celeste adrift in the Atlantic. She was sailing awkwardly, her course unsteady. When sailors from the Dei Gratia boarded her, they discovered a sight both ordinary and uncanny. The ship was largely intact. Her sails were tattered but not destroyed. Her hull was sound, not battered by storms. There was no sign of violence, no fire, no obvious calamity. The cargo below deck was still there, barrels stacked in the hold. Personal belongings of the crew remained untouched: clothes, neatly stored, instruments in their place. Even food and water, ample for many months, were found in supply. And yet the ship was empty. The crew, the captain, his wife and child gone. A single lifeboat was missing, suggesting they had abandoned ship. But why? The weather had been stable, the vessel seaworthy. There was no clear reason for such a departure. Speculation arose immediately. Some wondered if the alcohol cargo had leaked, producing fumes that frightened the crew into believing the ship would explode. Others suggested the possibility of mutiny, though no evidence supported it. Storms, piracy, even sea monsters were whispered as causes, though none held weight. Over the years, theories multiplied. Perhaps Captain Briggs, cautious by nature, ordered the crew into the lifeboat after a sudden squall or strange flooding. Perhaps they drifted away and could not return. Perhaps something stranger occurred, something lost to the sea forever. What remains most haunting is the stillness of the discovery. Imagine walking across the deck of the Mary Celeste, the boards creaking softly underfoot, the wheel unmanned, the sails pulling faintly in the wind. Below deck, trunks and clothing, instruments, toys of a child, meals untouched in the galley. A ship ready for its voyage but utterly abandoned. The story of the Mary Celeste has never been resolved. Courts investigated, sailors speculated, and novelists embellished the tale. But no definitive answer emerged. The sea keeps its secrets well. And so the Mary Celeste continues to drift through history, not as a wreck, not as a tragedy of battle or storm, but as a vessel shrouded in silence. A ghost ship. Not because it was haunted, but because it carried with it the unsettling absence of human presence. Now, what do you think happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste?
No.
Was there a hidden danger in the cargo of alcohol? Or perhaps a more sinister cause? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment down below with your opinion if you enjoyed this spooky maritime tale. Please remember to give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more adventures on the high seas and beyond. And hear us another chilling tale of the sea from our channel that I think you'll really enjoy. The year is 1872. You are walking along the busy docks of New York City. The smell of salt and industry heavy in the air. Ships from all over the world are docked here, ready to unload their valuable cargo. Among them are merchant ships laden with fabric and spices from Asia, sleek British warships, and even the occasional whaling ship with its barnacle-encrusted hull. But there's a new type of vessel gracing the docks lately, the luxury yacht. And it is like nothing else you have ever seen. Today we explore the lives of the lucky few who sailed on these floating palaces during the golden age of yachting in the 19th century. Let's jump right into it. These yachts were far removed from the crowded and filthy merchant ships of the time. They offered their passengers relative luxury and comfort, reflecting the wealth and power of their owners. The largest of these yachts were purpose-built for leisurely travel. Some were even converted from warships or other commercial vessels to offer their wealthy owners the height of comfort and luxury. For example, the yacht of George Peabody, an American banker, was originally intended to be a man of war. In fact, the United States Navy had already commissioned its construction, but ultimately decided against the need for such a powerful ship. Peabody seized the opportunity, purchasing the almost completed vessel and transforming it into a floating mansion. The yacht boasted 34 rooms and cost more than $1 million in today's money. For the first-class passengers on board these yachts, The experience was more akin to being on a luxurious land-based vacation than enduring the hardships of life at sea. Let's take a look at what life was like for these lucky travelers. As you step aboard, you are greeted by a vast open deck, seemingly endless space to roam and relax. Unlike the cramped and dangerous conditions on merchant ships or whaling vessels, there is plenty of room to move about on a yacht. Strolling along the deck becomes a favorite pastime, enjoying the ocean breeze and the feel of the sun on your skin. Polished wood gleams under the soft glow of lanterns as you make your way through the intricately designed interiors of the yacht. Rich fabrics drape over plush couches and armchairs, inviting you to sink in and relax. Compared to the dim oil lamp lighting on merchant ships, the yachts were almost dazzlingly illuminated. Some yachts even featured skylights to bring in natural light, making the interior spaces feel almost like a palace on land. But the opulence didn't end there. Entering the dining room, you are mesmerized by the sight of a long, elegantly set table. White linen and napkins are perfectly folded and adorned with intricate lace. Gleaming silverware is laid out beside fine china plates and crystal glassware, promising an evening of refined dining. Forget the salty, monotonous meals of ship's biscuits and salted meat. On these yachts, fresh ingredients were brought on board before setting sail, ensuring a diverse and delicious menu. If the kitchen wasn't fully stocked, fishing gear was available for sport and sustenance. The ship's cooks prepared gourmet dishes using these fresh catches alongside other provisions, creating a feast for the senses. No detail was overlooked in the preparation of each meal, which was a far cry from the daily grind of eating hardtack and salted pork aboard merchant or whaling ships. And what would a luxurious dining experience be without a well-stocked cellar? Bottles of fine wine and brandy were carefully stored below deck, each one selected to complement the exquisite cuisine. The stewards would pour each bottle with precision, ensuring the perfect vintage to accompany every dish. Unlike the watered-down beer or smuggled spirits found on many merchant ships, the yacht's bar offered a selection of top-quality drinks. While the food and drink were a feast for the senses, the accommodations on board the yachts were equally impressive. Instead of the cramped, dark cabins found on other vessels, the yachts offered spacious, well-ventilated rooms with comfortable beds. Forget the swaying hammocks or the cold, hard floors of merchant ships. On these yachts, privacy and comfort were paramount. Many cabins were even equipped with private bathrooms, a luxury not commonly enjoyed on land, let alone at sea. In addition, some yachts even featured dedicated libraries, offering guests a wide selection of books to peruse during the voyage. But the opulence didn't stop at the cabins. Public areas such as the saloon and drawing rooms were furnished with plush sofas, armchairs and tables, providing ample space for socializing and relaxation. These shared spaces also featured intricate decorations, including paintings, sculptures, and tapestries, transforming the yacht into a floating art gallery. Compared to the utilitarian design of merchant ships, the yachts were veritable palaces, complete with luxurious accommodations and a plethora of entertainment options. The wealthy passengers who chose to travel on these floating mansions were in for a truly unforgettable experience. Life on a 19th century yacht was not just about indulgence, however. It also came with its own unique set of challenges and surprises. While the yachts were equipped with state-of-the-art technology, including advanced engines and communication systems for the time, they were still susceptible to the whims of the sea. Storms could brew unexpectedly, and the passengers might find themselves tossed about on the waves, fighting to keep their balance. And then there were the unexpected visitors that occasionally made an appearance on board. From curious dolphins, swimming alongside the vessel, to flocks of seabirds diving and soaring overhead, passengers on these yachts were reminded that they were still at the mercy of the ocean, no matter how luxurious their surroundings. Even with all the comforts of home and more, life on a yacht in the 19th century was not without its drawbacks. Although the risk of piracy was lower compared to earlier centuries, it was still a real threat in some parts of the world. The wealthy passengers and valuable cargo aboard these yachts made them prime targets for ruthless pirates to defend against potential attacks. Many yachts were equipped with security measures such as locked cabins and hidden compartments for valuables. In case of an emergency, some yachts even had secret passages leading to the shore. While these precautions helped to mitigate the risks, the constant threat of piracy added an element of danger to the otherwise luxurious lifestyle of the yachtsmen. But perhaps the greatest drawback of life on a 19th century yacht was the limited access to fresh produce. Despite the efforts of the ship's crew to maintain a steady supply of food, the lack of refrigeration meant that fresh fruits and vegetables quickly spoiled, leaving passengers with a limited menu of preserved or dried goods. This scarcity of fresh food led many yachtsmen to develop a taste for more durable items, such as canned fruits and pickled vegetables, which may not sound particularly appetizing. Life on a 19th century yacht was a world of luxury and comfort, but also danger and sacrifice. While the wealthy passengers enjoyed spacious cabins, gourmet meals, and an endless supply of entertainment, they were still vulnerable to the unpredictable nature of the sea and the threat of piracy. Despite these drawbacks, the allure of life on a yacht was enough to captivate the imaginations of many, and these floating palaces continued to ply the seas for decades to come.
Ow.
Now we want to hear from you. How do you think life on a 19th century yacht compares to modern-day yachts? Would you prefer the luxury of a floating palace or the adventure of a more rugged seafaring experience? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to stay tuned for more exciting stories from maritime history. Thanks for watching. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time today. You can find more voyages like this one on my channel. In the flickering lamplight, the loom of the future is shrouded in uncertainty. What lies ahead? When the sun rises tomorrow, what will it bring? A change in fortune or another day of toil? Rest now, traveler. Let the gentle rocking of the ship lull you into a state of peaceful slumber. Close your eyes and envision yourself back on solid ground. Feel the texture of the earth beneath your feet, the roughness of the stones in the cobblestone streets, or the softness of the grass in an open field. Listen closely. Can you hear the faint rustling of leaves in the trees, the distant murmur of a stream, or the sweet singing of birds in the branches above? This moment of tranquility is yours alone. There are no prying eyes here, no expectations. You are free to lose yourself in the beauty of the present. But don't linger too long in this tranquil place. Your journey is far from over. The path ahead may be uncertain, but one thing is sure: the dawn will come again, bringing with it new challenges, new opportunities, and the chance to write another chapter in the story of your life. For now, though, let peace envelop you. Surrender to the soothing rhythm of the waves and allow the gentle rocking of the vessel to carry you into a deep and restful sleep. Your eyelids grow heavy and your breathing slows. You drift into a dreamless slumber. The ocean breeze whispers tales of adventure and intrigue, while the moon paints silver streaks across the rippling waves. As the night deepens, the ship cuts through the darkness, carrying you towards a new dawn. We are at sea, tossed upon the waves, the very elements conspiring to test our mettle. Storms arise, fierce and unrelenting, shaking the very foundations of our vessel. Lightning flashes, illuminating the wild dance of the ocean, while thunder roars its approval. The wind screams, a banshee's wail that threatens to tear our sails to shreds. Waves crash against the hull, each strike a challenge, each surge a threat. Yet amidst this chaos, there is a strange sort of beauty, a wild grandeur that inspires awe and respect. The sea, in all its fury, reveals its untamed power, a force that both terrifies and captivates the human soul. We are but small and fragile creatures upon this vast expanse of water, at the mercy of the elements. And yet there is something exhilarating about this surrender. A sense of freedom and abandon that comes from letting go in the face of the storm. As the ship pitches and rolls, we are reminded of the fragility of our existence, the tenuous balance between safety and peril. But it is in these moments of vulnerability that we discover the strength of the human spirit, the resilience of the soul, and the power of hope to sustain us through even the darkest of nights. For even as the storm rages around us, we know that the sun will rise again, chasing away the darkness and revealing a new day filled with possibilities. And so we hold fast to hope, knowing that after every storm comes calm. The salty temps of the sea air fills your nostrils as you stand at the railing, gazing out at the endless expanse of the ocean. The sun beats down warmly on your face, and the gentle rocking of the ship lulls you into a sense of peaceful tranquility. No. In the distance, you see it, a hazy silhouette against the azure sky. At first it appears as just another speck on the horizon, but as the minutes pass, it grows larger, revealing itself to be a ship sailing gracefully towards you. With each passing moment, anticipation builds. Who could this mysterious vessel be? Where has she come from, and where is she headed? As the ship draws closer, you strain to catch a glimpse of its sails, its hull, its crew. Each movement of the vessel sending a flurry of questions and theories racing through your mind. The ocean, once an endless expanse of solitude, now teems with possibility. The arrival of this mysterious ship stirs something within you, a sense of wonder, of excitement, and perhaps a touch of apprehension. What secrets does it hold? What stories could it tell? As the two ships approach each other, you know that this encounter will be a pivotal moment in your journey, a chance to forge new connections, discover hidden truths, or perhaps face unexpected challenges. Whatever lies ahead, you are ready to embrace it, to navigate the uncharted waters of the unknown with courage and grace. A strange silence has fallen over the ship.
All around you.
The crew moves with a hurried energy, their faces etched with concern. Whispers travel through the ranks, their voices low and urgent. The captain stands at the helm, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Even the wind seems to hold its breath, creating an eerie stillness that amplifies the growing tension. A sense of foreboding settles over you, a feeling that something is amiss, that danger may be lurking just beyond the edge of your vision. You scan the surroundings, searching for answers, but the vast expanse of the ocean offers no clues. The silence is broken only by the gentle lapping of the waves against the hull, a stark contrast to the turmoil that rages within you. What secrets lie hidden in this unsettling calm? What shadows are gathering on the horizon? As you stand there caught between the serenity of the moment and the gnawing unease in your heart, you realize that this tranquility is deceptive, a calm before the storm. You can feel it in your bones, a primal instinct telling you that the stillness is about to be shattered, and when it does, nothing will ever be the same again. Before we part ways, dear listener, I want to share a final tale with you. A story that captures the essence of the sea and humanity's eternal fascination with its mysteries. Imagine, if you will, a time-worn book lying open in your hands, its pages filled with faded ink and cryptic notes. As you delve deeper into its contents, you uncover a narrative that is both enchanting and perplexing. The story revolves around a solitary ship, the Mary Celeste, which vanished without a trace during a routine voyage across the Atlantic. The year was 1872 when the brigantine departed New York Harbor bound for Genoa, Italy laden with a cargo of industrial alcohol and bound for home. But the Mary Celeste was not destined to complete her journey. As the weeks passed without word from the vessel, anxiety began to grip those who awaited its return. Had it succumbed to the treacherous waters of the open sea? Or had something more sinister befallen her? The mystery deepened when the Mary Celeste was eventually sighted off the Azores Islands. Her sails intact, her cargo secure, but with not a soul on board. Where were the crew? What had become of them? And where was Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, and their infant daughter, who should have been among the passengers? The discovery of the abandoned ship sent shockwaves across the globe. Theories abounded, ranging from piracy to mutiny, from shipwreck to alien abduction. But the truth remained elusive, hidden beneath the waves like a sunken treasure. To this day, the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste continues to baffle historians and seafarers alike. Some believe that the crew may have been taken ill due to contaminated alcohol aboard the ship, leading to their untimely demise. Others speculate that they may have been victims of a violent storm, or perhaps a whale attack. Still, others whisper of more fantastical explanations, such as encounters with mythical creatures of the deep, or even supernatural forces. As I close this final chapter of our maritime adventure, I invite you to ponder the enduring allure of the sea. Like the Mary Celeste, life is full of twists and turns, joys and sorrows, triumphs and tragedies. Just as the vast ocean holds countless wonders and perils, so too does the journey of life. But as you navigate your own course, remember to stay curious, stay resilient, and never stop exploring the uncharted waters of your soul. For who knows what treasures you may find waiting for you on the horizon?